Hey, how y'all doing on this beautiful Wednesday? My name is Sherman Wells, and I'm here with Emma Muema, Dr. Emma Muema. And this is the Umoja Unity Forum. Yes, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So we got an array of people today. How you doing today, Emma?
Thank you. How are you, Shaman?
I'm doing great. Let's bring on our people here. We got Miss Nyrell. Hey.
Hey.
And we got Brother Kasim. All right, Miss Emma, I'm going to let you take it over.
Thank you, Shaman. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the MAC Foundation Umoja Unity Forum series. My name is Emma Muema. They like to call me Dr. Emma, so I'll go by Dr. Emma. I take it. I'm a scholar and a researcher in organizational behavior and policy. I will be your moderator today, and I invite my co-host, Sherman Wells, to introduce himself so that we can start us off.
All right. Well, I'm Sherman. I am the founder of Untamed, the unified nation, taking action, mentally erasing deception. We believe in unity being the only way that we are going to survive. And that's why we are here now on this live with you. So, yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Shaman. Tonight is our second live Umoja Forum series. These forums are aimed at increasing unity, collaboration, and synergy between African American and African immigrant communities in the Midwest. We will host a series of online forums and live events that provide a safe and inclusive space for dialogue and discussion between our two communities. Our discussion topic tonight is assessing the needs of our communities. And we have our panelists today. We have Nyrell Kale from South Sudan and Qasim Assad. Thank you for joining us. To start us off, I would like to invite Nyrell to introduce herself, and then Qasim, you'll introduce yourself. Then we can go into our discussion questions.
Yep. My name is Nyrell, also known as Real Kale. I'm an artist here based in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm also a mother, and I also advocate for the African community as far as the Sudanese community, and I'm also engaged with the African American community as well. So that's really about me. So yeah, so I'm very excited to be here to have this discussion, and I think it'll open up more things in the future.
Thank you.
I'm Qasim Shabazz, born here in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm the founder of a Black nationalist organization called the Black Agenda Alliance. I'm also the founder of the only all-Black Pan-African Football League in the state of Nebraska. And currently, what I would like to compare to the Boy Scouts, but it's for Black boys, and particularly called the Urban Survival Club of Omaha. Mm-hmm. And I'm a huge advocate for the union between the Africans and African Americans.
Thank you very much. Well, to start with our discussions, I would like to ask Qasim to tell us what you think are the three most pressing concerns or needs of African American communities in Nebraska.
The three most pressing concerns would be lack of political representation. Mm-hmm. I would say resources in regard to education pertaining to housing and buying homes and different aspects in that area. I would also say, if I would say a third one, I would say educational system is also a huge issue for the African people in general because of its lack of education in regard to the enhancement of African people in America.
So from what I'm hearing you saying, the education system, that sounds more like a curriculum issue, that it's not inclusive of the African American community, culture. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What about education resources that you talked about? What do you mean by education resources?
Well, for example, when I talk about the resources, I'll just use myself for example. Uh, one of the things that connects our young men back to themselves would be the opportunity to learn who they are through extra curriculum, such as hunting, shooting, fishing, archery clubs, different things that would tie them into manhood development. So whereas if you go to the other communities, especially the European communities, those things are offered almost as a first hand instead of a secondary or third or just in general. It's there, it's available. So when I speak about education, I'm speaking in regard to those particular things.
Okay. Shaman, what is your take on that same question about the three most pressing concerns? Are they the same, or do you have a different opinion?
I would say a lot of them are the same. Definitely, I think the connection to resources in general in the African American community is a big issue. I think there's a lot of programs and nonprofits that say they cater to the stuff, but if they're not getting out there with the people with those resources that they have, most of the time to the people it don't exist. And, so you can create all the nonprofits and programs that you want, but if you ain't getting out here with the people to show them or get in their face so they can know, they just won't know. I think another one is access to capital for small business startup. We, from the initial, for myself anyway, I was not taught about credit. I came up in the world of survival, so learning credit and those types of things and being able to know how to keep my credit score high and it just wasn't there. And so during that time when they redlined North Omaha, we were shut out of access to capital, even if it was for a house, and so small business startup definitely is something I think we didn't have. And then like Kasim said, the school curriculum, I didn't learn about Malcolm X being from Omaha until I was old enough to learn it for myself. And then learning myself and who I am didn't come until I dove into that myself. I do want to give Miss Tiffany a chance to introduce herself. She has appeared backstage.
Okay.
I'll bring Tiffany on just so she can give us a brief introduction of herself real quick. Give me just a moment. There she go.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Tiffany.
Hi, how you doing? I'm multitasking. Sorry, I was late.
It's all good. We wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us who you are real quick.
Sure. My name is Tiffany Gamble. I am the founder and executive director for Emerging Ladies Academy. We empower Black girls in technology through after-school programs and a tech academy. Nice to be here.
All right.
Welcome. We're just going through our first question, and we are discussing the three most pressing concerns or needs of African American communities in Nebraska. And I don't know whether you had the contribution from Kasim and Shaman, but we would like to hear your thoughts.
Sure. I feel like we need to be more collaborative together as it pertains to Africans and African Americans. I feel like we are so separate, but our stories are so similar. Our history is similar, but there's a disconnect, between what happened in the transatlantic slave era, and we need to talk. We need to sit down and talk about that and understand how the dots connect with each other. I think that is one of the most pressing issues as far as us as a community. Also, of course, I heard Sherman talk about finances as well. Financial literacy is major. We did not grow up understanding financial literacy, and I think that is paramount. You know, as we are building businesses and nonprofits, if we don't understand finances, we're not going to get far. We are already behind the ball. We don't have a lot of resources, but thanks to the pandemic, you know, now there's been a big push with Black entrepreneurs, Black business owners, nonprofits. So there is money there, but we cannot access the money because we're not financially literate. So I think that is another area that we need to press as well. So that's that. Those are my two cents on how we can really the two challenges for me as far as Africans and African Americans in our community.
Yeah, cousin. One of the things you said was the education, and it sounded more like the male education, bringing them into manhood. Do we have programs for women or the girls, or are they just lacking for the men?
Well, it's both. It's
Okay.
both, but um, that mic is real loud on that end. I think it's Tiffany's with the
Okay,
wind blowing.
there you go.
What I'll say is that what it comes down to in regard to, if I speak in regard to the African American, so-called African American community, um, you know, our situation is the way that it is because uh, we lack the competent men, or the men lack. We're lacking men. We're lacking systems that develop men, and that's intentional. That's been done intentionally. You see what I'm saying? Every problem in the Black community, African American community, I'm speaking on every problem in the African American community leads back to the lack of men, leads back to Black men having access to things that develop them into men. So that I would say that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
for your
ma'am.
contribution. Nairel,
Yeah.
what do you think are the top three immediate needs for Nebraska's African immigrant communities? Are they similar?
Um, yeah, I would say, of course, I agree with everybody when it comes to income, because income finances almost everything. I would say I agree with Kwasum with homes as well, because I feel like a lot of times, people are not in, like, good conditional homes, apartments, and stuff in that nature, because they're trying to find something that's affordable, or their credit isn't as good. And then another thing that I was going to point out is that I feel like, our mental health, having counseling for parents. I feel like a lot of times, when parents have kids, you know, I feel like just if they went through counseling, maybe that would have helped them, get to where they need to be so they can be able to hold down their household and things in that nature. So I feel like that's my biggest thing, is that we need more counseling in our communities and being able to have uncomfortable conversations due to trauma and other things in that nature.
Okay. Well, I will push back on that response on mental health, and not because I don't think that we need it. I'm just talking about our predecessors, the generations before us. How much access do they have to mental health, resources and counseling? And it seems to have become very prominent with our generation today. What has changed? Because they also had families, they had similar environments like we have today. So, what is it that has changed now that mental health has really received a big push?
I think it's been a bigger attack on our mentals.
Yeah.
Um, the reason there's a need more for mental health is because we have been mentally challenged to be something that we're not. A lot of programming of the people. So you're in a mental battle with your spiritual self that you were born to be, and then the system created self that they tell you to be based off your skin color. And so for me, I never could get into the stuff that they told me to be. I got into it somewhat, but most of the time it just didn't make sense. Like killing another brother over a color or a street name. But that was the box that we were put into of what we're supposed to be in the African American community. So I believe the reason why we need more mental health is some people can't win that battle. Imagine how many people have died trying to live up to the systematic person, and then you never even touch your spiritual self and the information you're receiving from your creator. Back then, those people to me were more spiritually in touch. We see it with the symbols and signs that we found in their graves and stuff. They were mentally in touch with their spiritual self and who they are. And the further time has went, the further we have gotten away from ourselves. And so mentally, man, it's hard to get back to yourself.
Okay, thank you for that, Kasim. What do you think?
Well, I haven't seen a time in which and where the mental health stuff have worked. I haven't seen it. You know what I mean? And it'll continue to be that way, in my opinion, on a mass scale, because the those that are taught through school and stuff like that how to deal with mental health, I don't think have been taught or been given the tools to deal with the capacity of our struggle, you know. And so for me, being somebody who's from the streets, being somebody who's very well connected, I haven't met anybody personally that have said that it have worked for them just coming up out of where we come from. I don't know. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in the whole system when it comes to accessibility to what they call mental health. So that would come with therapists and stuff like that. So I don't think, and I don't see where that. I mean, it's a lot of money in it for the 501c organizations that are pushing it, you know, and so that's what it has become, is commercialized to the point to where the government is allocating all types of money towards something that's not working for us. You know, our issue is resources and knowledge of self. We lack knowledge of self, you know, so.
And I think too, that's why a lot of people don't go to therapists, is because I've been told that they feel like the therapist, no matter their degree, they can't relate to the person or the struggle or the people. So unless you've gotten in there and been able to either empathize or experience it, you out of touch. And so I think mental health, it will come down to still not necessarily just a therapist, but disconnected from the system to understand more of yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say I go through therapy. I have a Black therapist. It does help. Like, don't get me wrong, I still have things that it's like, you know, going back to Qasim said, like, we really got to learn about, you know, self, and also what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, you know. So yeah.
Naira, when I just listened to the mental health issue, immigrants have come to America forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we are pushing more on mental health. So what has changed? It's the same question. What has changed that we feel like mental health has become prominent with the current generation?
Well, before I move forward, what does the word prominent mean?
Well, we seem to be more aware that mental health is an issue, especially for immigrants. Remember, the immigrant is looking at coming to America, the land of milk and honey. And then you get here and there's this, oops, the bubble bursts. And so the mental health becomes a real issue. But it was always an issue, even for previous immigrants and previous generations. Do you think because we have we have more prominence now, people are talking about mental health issues, that we are now talking about it and it's cutting across different communities? Is that why it's become prominent?
I would say yes, and plus, like we're like as Africans come like immigrants coming to America, like we're surrounded by different ethnic groups. So I feel like, we're getting a lot of input. We're seeing a lot of things we haven't seen, especially, like I said, coming from Africa. So, for first generation being from Sudan, like seeing what my parents went through and now seeing what I'm going through, I feel like we're just learning a lot to the point. It's like we can't really take, like Sherman said, we can't really take so much anymore. We're not how it used to be. Like we used to be spiritual, very spiritual, but I feel like we've been taken out of that element now that, we kind of stripped down from social media and other distractions to the point it's like, okay, like we kind of like, beat down. So I feel like now, we don't have a choice. We have to be able to look at each other and figure out what do we need to do? How are we going to be able to conquer our issues, especially on a mental basis? Because I feel like, a lot of times we can't really handle each other, when it comes to our emotions and stuff in that nature. But yeah, but I think it's a good thing, though. I think it's a good thing. Now we just got to figure out a solution.
Great. I like that. That takes us to the next question then. Tiffany, how might advocacy and nonprofit organizations push for these needs to be met among the African American communities?
I think she froze up.
She froze up. Kwasi. Oh,
Can you hear me?
Oh, there she go.
yes. Tiffany, did you hear the question?
Can you hear me?
Okay. How might advocacy and nonprofit organizations push for these needs to be met in African American communities?
Yeah, I think she froze up again.
Okay, I'm a hop off and I'm gonna get back in 5 minutes. I'm headed to my house.
Okay.
All right. Listen, that question, how much the advocacy and nonprofit organizations push for these needs to be met in African American communities?
I can go if you want.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I feel like there already are like events, especially shout out to Mac. You guys are doing great things. I feel like to resolve these issues, maybe more events with families as far as programs for employment. Like really try to hire them on like on the spot. Having relationship with brokers. Being able to have non-redlining brokers, and being able to actually have people qualify and how can they qualify, and also having relationship with people that can, put out more information when it comes to financial literacy classes. Because I'll be honest, I really haven't seen any financial literacy classes like that being promoted. And then my last one is that, having people take a try of therapy. I know therapy isn't as popular, but free, like if they could get grants to have people have free one-on-one sessions for like couples or individuals to have them try it out. I know Charles Drew have it. I went through it. It was all right, but I would recommend if you can go through your insurance, but that's another thing. But yeah, so I would say yeah, those are my three.
Okay, so financial literacy is very important for our communities, because if you don't understand how the system works, then you cannot take advantage of the system for it to work for you, especially for the immigrants. And so when you say that financial literacy classes should be promoted, do you have an idea of where or which areas we would be able to promote this? Because the Midlands African Chamber offers a lot of financial literacy classes.
Right now, I don't, because it's usually sometimes it could like for instance, for my kids' school, they have like their own financial literacy um, courses, but it's through a Catholic system. So it really depends, like, what schools, usually schools have good resources for parents if they go through like, like the person that handles like, the families and stuff in that nature if they need resources. So I would say like for parents or for anybody to go through schools, um, or yeah, it's tough, or even like maybe like Metro or even certain community colleges. But I really don't be seeing them promoted unless like you're trying to get a house and they have their own free classes to take to be a homeowner.
Okay, thank you for that. Kasim, I'll give you the same question. What might advocacy and nonprofit organizations push for these needs to be met? How can they go about it?
Your mic is muted.
Okay, am I there? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. What could they do? Man.
We have to be positive. We have to be positive.
I mean, I mean, it's levels to the positivity.
Okay.
Well, it needs to become more accessible.
Okay.
It's nowhere near as accessible as they make it sound.
Mm-hmm.
Not even close.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty expensive as well. So those two things right there is that it needs to be accessible, and the cost effectiveness, the cost of those services can be a bit extreme.
So the Midlands African Chamber doesn't charge for financial literacy.
Oh, you're talking about financial literacy?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the ballpark advocacy and nonprofit organizations. How can they help? Because we talked about the priority concerns. How can they help in alleviating some of those concerns? So one will be, of course, the financial literacy, and you said that they need to be more accessible and less expensive, and we understand that. But how else could they help to alleviate these concerns that we have as communities?
I mean, I don't know. I think that there must be more. There got to be more platforms available. There should be more people teaching on these particular things. I mean, I guess I don't really know how to answer that particular question, because I thought we were on mental health, but we're talking about that plus financial literacy. Omaha, Nebraska, specifically, the Senator Terrell McKennedy just did a report on the oversaturation of 501c3 organizations in the city. Okay, so how they can help versus what they've done. I don't, it's kind of a hard thing for me, because I've kind of lost hope and faith in the 501c3 organization side of things through misrepresentation of funds. And there's no, I have yet to see many track records, whereas people are able to back up what they've said they're going to do or have done with the money that they're generating.
Yeah, I have to agree. The trust of the community has been lost, but I do think that what we can do again is being more visible to the people who need the service. A lot of those people don't have rides. They don't know about the service. They're not on the internet. The advertisement for those things are not being like delivered to their house, to their mail, and it's not in the places where these people are. So I think if we, when you talk about pantries or the WIC office, stuff where they have to go for resources that they need, those other things should be available for them as well. So when they're picking up that pantry, maybe they get a pamphlet on financial literacy or some mental health. We got to start thinking outside of the box, because they're not going to just come right to you, even though they need the service. That's the sad part about it. But when it's a need, they're going to come for the need, and then they could actually get the resource for the service, I think. So
Okay. And so that's financial literacy. And the mental health also is a challenge because it's not accessible. It's the same challenge, right?
yeah, it's pretty much the same challenge, but then you got to think about it like when Kasim said, most people have that same thought. They don't look at therapy as something that helps or work. When I was young, I had to go to a therapist just coming from the foster system and abuse. It was forced upon me. So every Wednesday I had to catch a cab from school to go to a therapist. Well, and all he did was bought me toys and gave me food to eat. And I didn't trust him to talk to him about nothing personal. And so that's where I started to develop this. It don't help. But then when you meet the people who's there, it's just like any other job. When people have the passion for it, then you can tell the difference. And so it's become so commercialized. And like he said, it's a lot of money in it. So people take it as a job to get paid a lot. But are you really passionate about it? You know, and that comes off, especially with children. If they don't feel the passion from you or the care, then they're not going to open up to you. You know.
Nyrel, do you have something else to add on that conversation?
I'm just listening, but I definitely understand where they're both coming from, and I don't really have too much to say. I feel like the only thing that I can say is that, I feel like our people have to, you know, get out of that box of, always getting a handout. I feel like we're gonna have to like really, sort out our resources and try to, figure out how we're gonna find that help that we need, and it's hard, it's hard, but it's like at the end of the day, like it's getting to a point that, the Willie Lynch is being lifted. So it's like some people going to get left, through this process. But yeah, so that's all I have to say.
It's hard, but possible, like you said. And we got to stop expecting the handout when it comes to wanting to change. They say people do what they want to do, and they make time for the things that they want to make time for.
That's true.
Yeah.
If it's important, you will make time for it.
Absolutely.
That's how I see it. And so, welcome, Tiffany.
Hey, Tiffany.
I'm so sorry for all the technical difficulties. I apologize.
Okay, join the conversation. We're just concluding our second question where we're talking about advocacy and nonprofit organizations and how they could push for the needs to be met for the African Americans and for the African immigrant communities.
Well, first of all, I'm going to go back to education. I don't feel like we have been educated on advocacy and policy, how to advocate for different policies. I feel like we need to be educated in that area. And then what's important to us, as far as a nonprofit is concerned, how can we change laws? How can we advocate for laws to be changed or even new laws to be created? We don't know that process. So getting with our legislators, our senators, going to Lincoln, going to the Capitol and learning, sitting in on some of those meetings and those forums, and understanding the process, how to advocate, how to write letters, to congressmen and senators, so it first starts with educating yourself and then looking around to see what type of organizations are here that that share your thoughts or share your struggles. So for example, Tech Nebraska, they just started. It's a nonprofit and they work on policy with technology. So I'm connecting with her to learn about, how do we advocate for technology. And then also, what else I was getting ready to say? What is your area that you are interested in? Things that you want to change, like education, right? So you have to get into that space, ask questions, not be afraid to feel like you don't know everything. Be vulnerable. There was a bill that was passed for computer science to be required as a requirement to graduate from high school. And I was approached to come speak on that, so that was my first time going down to Lincoln and speaking on a bill, and it passed, so you have to get out of your comfort zone, and understand that the only way things are going to change is by policy.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest uh, advice, is to get some understanding, get educated. Our people fought and died for our right to vote, and we have a right to change policies and to vote on policies and to write our senators. We put them in office, so they have to listen to us. Use your voice, so this is my first step in doing that, and it was very humbling, and I'm very grateful that I was even chosen to go speak on behalf of computer science, because people know that I'm, I advocate for tech education. So I will be doing more of that in the near future, going down and creating policies around tech education.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we got a comment from Fifi who said, hey guys, great conversation. She was agreeing with Tiffany on the point of we absolutely have to advocate for ourselves, because nobody's going to do it for us.
Mhm.
So self-advocation, and plus we know what we need, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with Fifi, who's agreeing with Tiffany.
Okay. So one of the things that I find that we need to really be aware of is that change comes from policy, especially at a macro level. And so if you do not have political representation, if you are not looking at policy, like you said, there's no change that is going to happen. And so one of the things that I was able to do in a different institution was to start a program where the public policy process was designed into a program for university students. And so the students were actually taught what is the process of coming up with a bill. What do you need to do? What is a good bill and what is not a good bill? And how do you understand after you design the bill, what is the process? And that was a program that was disseminated to universities in that country. And it has really made a difference, because remember, the students at the university are the next leaders in our communities. And so if we elect um, members of our communities who do not even understand the public policy process, they cannot represent us. So it's really critical that some of these agencies are able to even look for those communities and educate them on things like policy and the process and why it is important. So I like that. Cousin, let's hear
Yes,
your take.
ma'am.
Let's hear your take on that.
On which part? The policies and
Political representation. I know we had talked about it. It was your first comment and concern that we need to address.
yes, ma'am. Definitely. I agree. That was one of the first things that I mentioned was not having proper representation or sufficient or enough representation. However, I don't feel like it's the only way to make change. We've made plenty of it, but not a whole lot of folks on our side. So back to what Sister Riel was stating earlier today, which is the direction that I lean toward as a nationalist, as a founder of a organization that's lucrative, both morally and financially, and becoming more so, is that we've relied on the backs of one another, because that's what other communities do. They always have another, or let's say European and other communities that don't look like us. They always have a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
Plan A, plan B, but the plan A is to rely on one another, and then, if a particular group of people don't get a particular person in office, they have still exercised the ability to cooperate with one another, because we're so disconnected and been disconnected and continue to disconnect. A vast of us have an issue or we struggle in that area severely. One, through not wanting to have the hard conversations. Two, through a lack of discipline. And three, as I mentioned earlier on today, I do believe that every issue that we have in the community, both are all pointing at the lack of men and the way that they try to emasculate us and put us in a position in which where we're not able to demonstrate properly. So back to my point, yes, policy and procedure, learning policy and procedure, which is something we're working on as we speak. But we're starting with our youth, and then because I mean it means nothing. I mean, right now we wonder why no one is showing up to the voting polls. Well, there was nothing in place 2, 3, and 4 generations, 5 generations, which and where there was an educational process. Whereas you will go to a community that have not been as oppressed or oppressed, they have these things in place, in which where they're teaching their children policy and procedures at the age of 6, 7 years old, on up the totem pole. You know what I mean? So it's our responsibility to put these things in place. There's no way we're going to get even get to where we need to get to, relying specifically or even stating that it's the only way. It is not the only way. And I bear fruit to that. I bear fruit to that.
Okay. Okay. Well, you actually have taken us to the next question on what our two communities need to do to move forward, to help each other overcome these obstacles and to move forward. What are some of those things? We have said relying on one another is one of the ways. What are the other ways we could go about this?
Well, I can speak again, even with Sister Rael, who I work very close with. Her son,
Okay.
we're very close. And one of the things that this conversation that we're having right now, her and myself, Sherman, and others have been having for the last several months, in regard to bringing together some form of a African Union in the city, so that we can begin to demonstrate from that perspective. So these are some of the things that are already in place, so that we can, and everybody's not going to get on board, because like I know, sister, um, with the African Americans, we deal with one thing, and then my African brothers and sisters that come from the motherland, there's tribalism and clanism, and I'm better, so how it go. So there's already things being done, such as intermixing into the programming and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you. Tiffany, how might these communities collaborate to address our issues?
Like Wasim said, joint initiatives. I feel like we are better. We are better together, and it's it hurts my heart that we're so separated. We don't talk to one another. We don't understand each other's plight, and we do need to sit down and come together. We're all one. And what I said from the beginning, we share more commonalities than differences in our stories, in our history. I feel like once we can come to a common ground and understand each other, we will be better together as a community. But we have to just sit down and start talking and understand that your history, our history, it's the same history. Um the atrocities we have both um dealt with, on both sides of the continent, and it has created division between us. So having those conversations, I'm glad that you two are having those conversations and trying to figure out where do we go from here. We share the same struggles. So that for me is like critical. If we're not in the rooms talking, there's nothing that can be done. So that's the first thing. And then cultural exchange and celebrations. We need to be around. We need to celebrate each other's culture. We need to understand, what certain holidays mean in different tribes and different countries. And same here. It's not separate. We're together. So being able to break bread with each other during certain holidays, so we can have an understanding of who we are, why we do things, why we have certain cultures and traditions, is critical, because you will see that we do the same things in in America, as some countries do in Africa. We got some of our cultures and our traditions from Africa. And with me traveling and going to Ghana, it was so apparent. So we need to celebrate each other, go to each other's traditional culture events, so we can see we do the same things. For example, just this is just small libations that came from Africa, right? Eating together came from Africa. Community came from Africa. So if we can sit down and just see each other in our elements, we will understand that once again we are we are more similar than different with each other.
Thank you. Irel, what can the African immigrants do to address this collaboration? What do we do?
I say all right, say for instance, I wasn't, I'm just coming from America, and I've just been around. I feel like I would be interested by supporting and going to events. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of events that, especially in North Omaha, that's going on. So I feel like, being able to just support each other, going to each other events, seeing what is going on. Because I feel like we have resources, and that's why I want to give an applaud to the African American community in North Omaha. Like, you guys are doing great things, and I really look up to you guys as far as what you guys doing. And then applaud to Mac and all the other Africans, especially on the West. You guys are doing great things as well. So I would say that, and then being able to just really bring each other together is that, like, we're just gonna have to have uncomfortable conversations, like the conversation we had about, when Untamed, what Quasim and Sherman had, and Trent, about gang prevention and education. We're gonna have to attend those seminars, and we're gonna have to keep pushing it. Keep getting it to the people as much as we can. And the right people is gonna come, and then it's just gonna be a trickle effect. So I feel like the unity is happening amongst each other. We're starting to finally wake up. Like I said, I just learned about the Willie Lynch uh, just like yesterday. I didn't even know what it was, and I need to get that book, Quasim, when you got time. But yeah, like we just gotta be just finally be uncomfortable to be comfortable. Cause it's just time, and there's great things that we gotta do that we already doing, but it just gotta keep going. So yeah.
Okay. Shema, we have not heard from you.
Yeah. Well, I think our biggest efforts is doing what we're doing now. And just from the moment I met Corinne and Rael, the passion for bringing those communities together was already within us. So then when we started talking about it, it's like, yeah, we got to do it. And just like Rhea just said, educate the collective, unite the collective. So now we're bringing our ideas to the public. So we're educating and uniting the collective by by being the example of the unity and what we need to do. So like she said, attending each other events, breaking down those stereotypes and quit thinking that we have these differences, and none of it was created by us. So it was created by other people to keep us separate. So we have to quit believing in the stereotypes and just go see for yourself how the Africans gonna treat you, or how the African Americans is gonna treat you. And you get your own knowledge or self-awareness of the situation, because I think as long as we keep living outside of the stereotypes, we're never going to get together.
And I'm sorry, Dr. Emma, I wanted to say one thing, and then I also would highly recommend when it comes to that, us like coming together, I feel like some people be like, oh, this African is treating me a certain way, or this other person. So I feel like we gotta like get that out of our head and
Yeah.
not put it on a group of people. So making sure that we don't criticize one another because of one interaction.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I think a lot of education, because there's mistrust already in the communities.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we address this mistrust? And that will be addressed in our next event. But we are coming close to the end of our event tonight, and I would like to ask you to give us your closing remarks with Kwasim.
Closing remarks, Kasim.
You know, I just want to thank you both for having me on tonight. What an honor and a pleasure. Um, and I'm proud, and we're just gonna keep up the good fight. We're just gonna keep up the good fight, and that's pretty much where I'm at with it.
Where do you think we can start? I'm sorry to
Where?
interrupt. Yeah, like two places. Where do you think we could start? Just two things, two simple things.
Well,
One is
this
event.
conver-
Two.
this conversation is one.
Okay.
You know, having this conversation constantly and on a broader scale, definitely in person amongst food, because we all like food, right?
I like
So
food. I like
that,
food.
you know what I mean. So that's one thing, and then two, the interchangeable stuff. Some of us are already doing it, you know, and we plan to expound on it, and so that would be it. Interchanging and learning from one another and having these conversations regularly on this platform, in person, and even larger. I think it bring a whole lot of clarity and understanding to the fold.
Right. And like
Thank
Rhea
you.
said in the comments, stop segregation within our communities. Yes, Rhea.
I like
Go,
that.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Amen.
Nyrel, closing shot.
Um, yeah, first of all, I'm so happy we had this conversation. This has been something like it feels like a dream that, I could finally see African Americans coming together, and hopefully we can not even call each other, we could just say Africans throughout the board, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like this is God willing. And I'm just able to be proud to be around, professionals like you guys, and I'm excited for the future. So I just commend you guys to keep going, and I'm gonna support y'all as much as I can in my capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany, parting shot.
Yes. So Rael, I like when you said you didn't know about Willie Lynch, right? I think that's the biggest disconnect from Africans and African Americans. Africans don't understand our story. So once you have an understanding of that, then you can have empathy and we can be closer together. A lot of times, am I on still?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, when I'm gonna go back to Ghana. When I went to Ghana, I went to the slave castles and all of that, and a lot of the Ghanaians didn't want to go. Like, oh, that's old history. Or it never happened, or we don't want to know about it. Well, that's it still has affected us today, as African Americans. We still are fighting because of that. So understanding our history on what happened after they took us. I think Africans don't understand or don't really see the value of understanding that history and why we move the way that we move in America, and that causes a separation. So having those difficult conversations as well. This is the history of what happened after we left, and this is why we are the way that we are. This is why there's systemic racism here. They don't understand racism. What until they get here. Oh wow, you have to deal with this. Yes, we still deal with it 400 years later. So having those hard conversations so we can understand each other. So I'm glad. Thank you for allowing me to address my concerns on this platform. I'm glad that we are starting to talk. It has been a long journey for me to connect with my Africans, my African people.
Yes.
My first experience was in college. I went my first Black Studies class. My professor was from Kenya, and I
Oh,
sat in the front of the class. I was mesmerized. So and I had to fight long and hard to get into the African community in Omaha because
Yeah.
of trust. Because of trust. And because now that I've traveled, I'm doing all this work, now I'm accepted. And it's sad that I had to go through all that to get accepted into the community. We're brothers and sisters. We don't need to be afraid of each other. We are cut from the same cloth, period.
Absolutely.
So thank you for allowing me to share my story, and I'm gonna continue to fight. We are one. Absolutely 100%. I support. I don't care what country you come from Africa. You are my people. You are my sister. You are my brother, and I will be here to fight together with us. So if we get together, let's get together. On certain holidays, I know, like the Sudanese have parties up at oh gosh,
Starlight.
yes, all the time.
Girl.
Why aren't we there? We need to be there. Y'all need to invite us, so
Oh,
we can
y'all
understand
can
the
go, but
culture.
We
yeah.
could
But we
definitely
don't
go.
we
But
don't know
like,
about it.
it's better to be invited.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say too,
Right.
like off of what Tiffany said, when you was talking about not knowing or not, they said they didn't want to go because it's old history, but for us, it's very important because we struggle to have our history. But it kind of
Right.
reminds you of like the privilege of kids that are raised with money, and then the ones who are poor. So I think sometimes Africans, since they are from Africa and they can absorb all that, we they don't see that our value is it, but then there's a thing too where they have their struggle and we don't appreciate or understand the struggle that they had to go through too,
Right.
being
Right.
colonized by France and all these different
Right.
people pushing all this religion on them. And so they've had a struggle that we don't understand. And so we
Right.
battling all of that. But at the end of the day, guess what? From the outside looking in, we all black. They looking at us just, you a black person. If you get pulled over, I have a black female or a black male. It's no, he's African or African American. There's no separation, only in our minds.
It's not.
ooh, powerful, powerful, powerful. Okay, thank you very much for your contributions.
Yeah,
Sherman.
but before we go, I do gotta make a quick statement. For one, if you haven't already, there's something scrolling across the bottom. You see those words? Make sure you are clicking or going to that link and joining the MAC Midland African Chamber. And if you following us or not on Facebook, go to the Facebook group, click the follow so you can stay up to date with what's going on. Because guess what? December 13th, we have an in-person event. Yeah, that's right. In person, it's going to be longer than an hour because for us, we need longer than an hour to get together.
Yes,
So the in-person event is going to be longer. So make sure y'all get connected with the Midland African Chamber. Follow our page, and so that way you can stay up to date with the next event. Because the in-person one, our melanin going to be popping in person, and we get to see each other's beautiful faces and pass some of that beautiful energy with some great hugs. So
thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great conversation tonight. We look forward to seeing you in December.
All right.
Yeah.
See y'all later.
Thank
Peace
you.
and hair. Thanks to everybody who joined us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And y'all have a great night.
All right.